Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. In this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. Purport: when we speak of transcendental knowledge, we do so in terms of spiritual understanding. As such, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Ignorance is the cause of our bondage, and knowledge is the cause of our liberation. This knowledge is the mature fruit of devotional service, and when one is situated in transcendental knowledge, he need not search for peace elsewhere, for he enjoys peace within himself. In other words, this knowledge and peace culminate in Krishna consciousness. That is the last word in the Bhagavad-gita. Human life is especially meant for acquiring knowledge. Animals, they can acquire knowledge to a limited extent. But the scope for humans to acquire knowledge is far greater. In the modern age, people think that knowledge means to acquire all information about the material world. Why do people study in schools and colleges? Well, obviously to get knowledge. Obviously to get knowledge, with the idea that by getting knowledge their situation can improve. Bhagavad-gita is also, Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gita to Arjuna on the same understanding. Arjuna was suffering due to ignorance. Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gita to give Arjuna the knowledge by which he could become free from all distress. Now, Arjuna already had a lot of knowledge before he heard Bhagavad-gita. He was particularly expert in the knowledge of fighting. That's also a very great science. And he was knowledgeable about the precepts of worldly dharma, lokic dharma. And he not only had studied, but he had gained great knowledge from experience. He had traveled widely on this planet and on other planets also. He had been to Swargaloka and to Nagaloka. So he was learned, no doubt. He was knowledgeable. That was part of his problem. As Krishna, when he first spoke to Arjuna in Bhagavad-gita, said to him, Ashochanan vashochang twang pragyavadans cha bhashase gatasuna gatasums cha nanushochanti panditaha. That you are lamenting for that which should not be lamented for. You are speaking as if you really know a lot, but someone who's actually learned, a pandit, doesn't speak in the way that you are speaking. And Krishna proceeded to speak Bhagavad-gita to Arjuna, by which Arjuna, he gained a type of knowledge of which he previously didn't have. As human beings, we all have some knowledge. But if we do not gain the knowledge that Krishna taught to Arjuna, then that knowledge doesn't really help us at all. If you learn computer science, you can become a software engineer. If you learn, if you get your Master of Business Administration, you can administer someone else's business. They earn the money and you just get a little bit. So this knowledge improves our situation. But that improvement, that apparent improvement, doesn't really improve our situation. Because as long as we're in this material world, we have to suffer. Janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkha, birth, death, old age, and disease. So if we think that our situation is substantially improved because we earn a little more money while we're suffering birth, death, old age and disease, that is a great misconception. As an example, you might be beaten, if someone beats you with an iron rod, and then you say, please don't beat me with an iron rod. So then he brings a rod made out of gold and beats you with that. And you think, oh, now this is much better. But you're a fool because you're still suffering. But you're looking at all the other people. Oh, they're only being beaten with iron rods. I'm being beaten with a golden rod. So the idea that we will improve our material situation, in this way we'll make a substantial improvement in our existence, is ignorance. And that ignorance was what Arjuna was suffering from. And that's what we're all suffering from in this material situation. As long as we think that we can be very happy in this material world, then we may be very learned, but we're simply a fool. Studying, and as a reward you get beaten with golden rod, and you might even have some design on the rod also. This is a very special rod reserved only for PhDs. But we still have to suffer birth, death, old age and disease. Now when we say birth, death, old age and disease, just saying it doesn't sound as if there's anything wrong with it. But when we suffer, we suffer. What do you say, doctor? People come to you, they're suffering. It's very real suffering. They may have, $1 million business or a very big degree, but even if you have a toothache, little toothache, so much suffering. I think everyone's had toothache, isn't it? Everyone gets a toothache. That little thing, so much pain. What about ingrowing nail? Has anyone had that? Here's another doctor. This little thing, the nail is growing inside. Because I know, I had it also. Very painful. This is the condition of the material world. Sometimes we're diseased, sometimes we're not diseased. But disease we cannot avoid. Death we cannot avoid. So, knowledge this is described by Krishna in Bhagavad-gita, Janma Mrityu Jaravyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. One major factor of real knowledge is to observe that we are constantly subject to birth, death, old age and disease. We cannot escape this. Now sometimes when we say this, people say, well, this is very pessimistic. Why don't we see the good things in life? Well, there are many good things in this world, maybe. Just like in between being beaten by golden rods, you can have a dance with your girlfriend or something like that. But again, you have to be beaten. So where is the happiness? As is repeatedly stated in Bhagavatam, Kim sukham martya dhaminam. What happiness is there in a place of death? So, the knowledge of Bhagavad-gita is actually not pessimistic. Krishna gives us that knowledge by which we can live forever. Now you may think, well, if I have to live forever, that doesn't sound very good. It means the body will get old and older and older and older and older. So if you're 500 years old, completely worn out body. But Krishna gives us the knowledge by which we can attain our pure spiritual existence. Just like we have seen so many pictures of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here is a picture of Krishna. We never see Krishna looking old with wrinkles. That is because Krishna is fully spiritual. Sat-chit Ananda. Krishna is Sat-chit Ananda. That means that Krishna is never born, he never dies. He never grows old. He is never distressed. He's always in pure transcendental bliss. We may say, well, Krishna is born, and in fact, the devotees, they celebrate his birthday. But we celebrate Krishna's birthday because he's not born. He's not born like an ordinary human being. We are all born how? Karmana daiva netrena jantur deho papati. We are all born according to our previous activities, karma, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and the demigods. But Krishna comes to this world simply out of his own desire to benefit us. So his birth, that is his lila, or his transcendental activities. So we should not think it's like the birth of anyone else. We get different bodies one after another like this. Now I am in a human body. Previously I must have been in a snake body, cat body, dog body. Previously I may have been Indra. Another time I may have been the worm crawling in the ground. But Krishna, he's the same every time he comes. Because his body never dies. It's a completely spiritual body. But then we hear of Krishna's death, that's described also. But that is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as just part of his lila or drama. He does not actually die. He leaves this world in the same body to go back to the spiritual world where he came from. So this knowledge of eternal life is given in Bhagavad-gita. Just as Krishna is eternal, we also are eternal. But we get different bodies, one after another. Because we do not recognize, we do not admit our eternal position of service to Krishna. So the knowledge of Bhagavad-gita is very easy to understand. There are really just two basic points. Krishna, the first point is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The second point is that we are all his eternal servants. But there are many other details to help us understand these 2 points. Generally when people think of supreme, they think of something impersonal. But Krishna is the supreme and he is a person. And when we think of a person, we think that a person cannot be supreme. Because we see so many different persons, and some are higher and some are lower placed. But we cannot imagine anyone who is superior to all. But that person is Krishna. Or sometimes we think, well, there are many gods, and they're all the same. There are so many gods you can worship. And if you like, you can make up some new ones too. Just like previously, no one worshipped Sai Baba. But now it has become popular by imagination that people should worship this Sai Baba. But if we study Shastra, we can understand that Krishna is supreme. Krishna should be worshipped. There's no real benefit in worshipping demigods. Whatever benefit we get from them is temporary. Antavattu phalang tesham tad bhavatyalpamedasam. In Bhagavad-gita, Bhagavan Krishna says that people who worship demigods are of small intelligence because they just get some temporary benefit. Like the same example can be given. In between being beaten, you can eat off a golden plate. By worshipping demigods, you might get temporary relief from disease, but you cannot get permanent relief. By worshipping demigods, you might get blessed with lots of money, but you cannot get free from birth, death, old age and disease. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we are all his eternal servants. That means that we're not the body. We get body after body after body. But we all have our eternal position in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, some living beings, they're in the form of trees. They like to serve Krishna as trees. Some are in the form of humans who serve Krishna as servants, just by doing menial service. Some take the position of Krishna's friends, and some are in the role of parents. Apart from in Vrindavan, there is Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, and in Mathura and Dwaraka, there's Vasudeva and Devaki. But there are many others also who are not exactly directly the parents of Krishna, but who have that feeling toward Krishna. And some serve Krishna as lovers, just like the queens of Dwaraka, the Gopikas of Vrindavan. As long as we identify with this material body, we suffer the inevitable birth, death, old age and disease of this body. And when we identify ourselves as servants of Krishna, then we take part in the eternal blissful pastimes of Krishna. So this knowledge is to be imbibed in human life. We our natural position is to be servants of Krishna. But we have forgotten that. Therefore we need to be reminded. And we have many misconceptions. Therefore we need to be trained in the knowledge. We have to be trained in the knowledge by which we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and we are all His servants. So this temple is established here particularly for teaching people about Krishna and devotional service. And it is envisaged that a large temple of Krishna will be established here, and many people will come for darshan. But on the order of Srila Prabhupada, our intention is to build a temple not simply so that people look at the deity and come away. Our understanding is this: when people come to the temple, they feel happy. They have a spiritual feeling. So if they're educated in Krishna consciousness, they can maintain that happiness at all times. So the Vedic motto is Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. Let everyone be happy. That is possible when we stop trying to be happy in the material world. When we understand that our happiness is in Krishna's happiness, in serving Krishna. So this temple is an educational center. Education in the teachings of Bhagavad-gita. The knowledge by which people can become free from the distresses of birth, death, old age and disease, and in which they can become eternally happy in the service of Krishna. So this knowledge is imparted both theoretical and practical. There is philosophical teaching, just like is going on right now, but that can be conducted in a more systematic way, going through all the different points. And there's also the practical application of that knowledge. We learn that we are servants of Krishna. So the practical application of that is that we should serve Krishna. And there are many ways to serve Krishna. Many, many activities in Krishna's service. And a temple of Krishna gives many people the opportunity to serve Krishna in various ways. And even people who are at a very beginning stage of devotional service, they can serve Krishna. But our devotional service can become pakka, can become very strong and fixed if we understand why we are doing it. Generally people, they do bhakti with the idea that we will get the blessings of God and our material situation will improve, or that we will get mukti. But the pure devotional understanding is that why are we serving Krishna? Because we only want to serve Krishna. We have no desire other than to serve Krishna. We are constitutionally servants of Krishna. Anyone who's leaving, please don't go without taking prasadam. Make sure they get some prasadam. So this knowledge we wish to get. Of course, many people don't come to the temple, or they only come very rarely. So the temple is a base from which the preachers of Krishna consciousness go out, and they give people knowledge of Krishna by distributing these books, especially Bhagavad-gita as it is, and many other books, and Bhagavad-darshan magazine. And we conduct courses for students and other people, just so that people can utilize their human form of life to gain knowledge of Krishna and become free from the sufferings of repeated birth and death. Hare Krishna. Any question about this place?
Pandavas, the real devotees of Krishna, suffered so much. Why?
His question is that the ultimate knowledge, jnana, is that this we understand is at 2 points. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, where he is Ishara servants. But besides that, many different levels of spiritual aspirants go to different places and they get so many preliminary aspects of the spiritual life. What will be their destination? Why they are stuck up there?
Say again in Tamil. Well, ultimately, unless we get knowledge of Krishna consciousness, there's no, the benefit is not very substantial. Generally, people think that spiritual knowledge means to know how to get mukti. But you can say that's some kind of progress, but it's still a long way from the full perfection. Generally think that you get mukti, and then after that, what do? Nothing. Nothing. They think mukti, then just everything finished. So this is a very incomplete understanding. Just like if you're being beaten and you learn how you can get free from being beaten. And then after that, what do? You don't know. So you just do nothing. But we are meant for activity. We are meant for life. We are meant for love. Love. So that real knowledge means to know Krishna. Otherwise, if you may get some preliminary knowledge, but unless you bring it to the conclusion practically, then it's not much value.
Based on lectures, any questions? He says, what is the meaning
of what?
What's the meaning? You said that always you are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Yeah.
So what is the meaning? What's the purpose?
This is a prayer to Krishna. Please engage me in your service. This is the essence of all prayers and all mantras. Then that question, why were the Pandavas always suffering? Pandavas never suffered. They're pure devotees of Krishna. Pure devotees of Krishna never suffer. If you're always thinking of Krishna, then there's no suffering. If you're not thinking of Krishna, then you're always suffering. Duryodhana, he was always suffering because his mind was always tortured by kam, krodh, lobh, all these bad things. Whereas even if externally there are many difficulties, if one's mind is pure and one is always thinking of Krishna, then one is always situated in transcendental bliss. Practically we see all the famous devotees of Krishna, they all appeared to suffer in some. If we see Dhruva, Prahlad, Ambarish, the gopis, but they're all in transcendental bliss. Joto deko Vaishnava beboha dukh Nishchoy jane hotaha parananda shuk. If you ever see Vaishnavas, they appear to be suffering, actually you should know that they're always situated in transcendental bliss. Ultimately, happiness and distress depend on the state of one's consciousness. So devotee of Krishna is always in Krishna consciousness. And for the sake of lila, a devotee may appear to be in distress. But we should know they have no actual distress. Of course, we're not so advanced as Pandavas, Prahlad. That's why their stories are in the Shastra, not our story. To give us the ideal after which we should aspire.
She asked that Krishna died just for the sake of Leela or for starting another Leela?
Say again in Tamil. Well, Krishna didn't die. Yeah, he made a show of dying. That is his pastime. And yeah, he goes on to another. He enters. He's simultaneously existing in the spiritual world and in the material world.